Plenty of places that hand out food. There's plenty of people driving around handing out food.
Five years ago, a young British Muslim man took his own life after being outed as gay to his strictly religious family. Naz Mahmood had been in a relationship for 13 years before his family found out. Now, a foundation set up by his fiancée Matt is calling on parents from faith backgrounds to be out and proud supporters of their children. Naomi Iqbal has been speaking to him.
The screen is black. You hear traffic, city air, far-off music, a bottle rolling on concrete, then another sound, the small metallic clink of a needle cap hitting the ground. Light rises slowly on a city street at night. Above us, a rainbow flag hangs from a bar window. Inside, people are dancing, laughing, raising glasses. Neon signs glow in pink, blue, purple. A drag performer poses for a photo on the sidewalk. Someone shouts Happy Pride, and a group bursts into cheers. A few blocks away, the rainbow colors fade. The music is softer here, leaking from distant windows. Streetlights flicker. In the alley behind the same bar, two figures sit on flattened cardboard, wrapped in a shared blanket. One of them, a young person with a shaved head on one side and dyed hair on the other, rubs their arms against the cold. Their name is Alex. The other, older, leans back against the brick wall and stares at the sky. At their feet is a crumpled paper bag. Next to it, on the ground, there is a used syringe. Nobody from the bar sees them, or if they do, they look away. A car passes by. In the back window, a small rainbow sticker glows under the streetlight. This is the split reality of queer life in many cities. On one street, pride banners and corporate floats. On another, queer and trans people sleeping under those banners, their bodies carrying bruises, their veins carrying the scars of repeated injections. In the United States and many other countries, LGBTQ+ people are more likely than straight and cisgender peers to experience homelessness. They are more likely to be kicked out by family, to run away from violence, to be bullied at school, to face discrimination in housing and shelters. Many turn to drugs, including opioids and fentanyl, as a way to numb pain, cope with trauma, or survive the constant stress of not being safe. Others are introduced to injection drugs by partners, friends, or dealers who become their only support. Homeless queer and trans youth are more likely to exchange sex for shelter, food, and safety. They are more likely to experience physical and sexual violence, both from strangers and from people they trust. They are more likely to talk about love and harm in the same breath. This episode is about that intersection. Queer, homeless, in love, in danger, surrounded by needles. It is about couples holding hands in a tent under a freeway, friends watching over each other while they sleep on a train platform, found families sharing hormones, medication, and clean syringes because nobody else will. It is about what it means to search for belonging when every system seems to say, you don't belong anywhere. This is Homeless Lens, and this is Queer and Homeless, Love, Violence, and Needles. Faces and stories, Alex, Rosa, and Malik. The next morning, the city looks different. The bars are closed. The pride flags are still, hanging limp in the early light. Street cleaners move slowly along the main road. Delivery trucks back up to kitchen doors. Under a small overhang behind a bus stop, Alex wakes up. They are 20 years old, non-binary. A backpack is their pillow. Their jacket is their blanket. A small pride pin is attached to the strap of the backpack, scratched from too many sidewalks. I came out when I was 16, Alex says. I thought it would make things clearer. I thought it would mean I could finally breathe. Instead, it was like I opened a door and got pushed through it. Home was not safe after that. It started with little comments, they say. Jokes about phases and real boys and real girls. Then it turned into shouting. Then into things getting thrown. I was told I was an embarrassment. I was told not to bring that lifestyle into the house. At 17, after one particularly bad night, Alex left. I thought I was going to stay on friends' couches until I graduated, they say. But couches run out. Friends' parents get nervous. Pretty soon, I was sleeping in parks, in stairwells, on trains. That's when I met other queer kids who were going through the same thing. They also met drugs. At first it was just weed, they say. Then it was pills. Then someone gave me something stronger and said, "This will help you not feel so scared all the time." I didn't know it was fentanyl. I just knew that it made the noise in my head go quiet for a while. Before long, once in a while became every day. Their arms tell the story. Small scars, bruises, places where the needles have been. On the other side of the city, in a line outside a drop-in center, stands Rosa. She is 31, a trans woman. A small heart tattoo peeks out from under her sleeve. Her nails are chipped but painted. She clutches a plastic folder with documents inside. Identification papers, medical forms, a housing application she has filled out 3 times. I knew I was a girl from the time I was 5, Rosa says. But where I grew up, that wasn't something you could say out loud. So the first pretended. I tried to be the son my family wanted. She managed to hide pieces of herself for years. Stealing looks at dresses, humming along to songs she loved, trying on lip gloss in secret. When she finally said the words, "I'm a woman," the reaction was fast and brutal. My father said I wasn't his child anymore, she says. He told me to leave and not come back until I was fixed. The irony is, if I didn't leave, I don't know if I'd be alive right now. Rosa came to the city with a suitcase and a phone number someone gave her for a shelter. The shelter said they were full. When a bed opened, she was assigned to the men's side. I tried to explain, she says. I told them I'm a woman. They told me it was too complicated. Some of the staff were kind but said their hands were tied. Some of the other residents were not kind at all. She left and slept outside. On the street, she found a small circle of trans women and queer people who taught her where to get hormones, where to find food, where to avoid police who treated them like criminals just for existing. They also taught me how to survive in other ways, she says. You do dates. You meet men who will pay for your time. You hope they don't hurt you. You hope they pay what they promised. You hope you come back. She began using opioids and then fentanyl to cope with the constant fear. When you live every day with the possibility of violence, your body is always tense, she says. The drugs make that tension feel far away. For a little while, anyway. Not far from the drop-in center, inside a crowded shelter common room, we meet Malik. He is 27, black, and gay. He sits with a small group of friends, charging his phone from an outlet on the wall. I used to have a boyfriend, an apartment, a job, Malik says. People think homelessness just happens to kids who run away. Sometimes it happens to adults who thought they had everything together. They were together for years. They had a life built on shared bills, shared grocery lists, shared plans. But behind closed doors, the relationship changed. He started using more, Malik says. More pills, more powders. He got paranoid, controlling. He accused me of cheating if I went anywhere without him. He pushed me. Then he hit me. And I stayed longer than I should have because I was scared and because I loved him. In queer communities, intimate partner violence can be hard to talk about. There is fear of confirming stereotypes, fear of not being believed, fear of losing the only person who accepts you in a world that often doesn't. One night it got really bad, Malik says. He grabbed me by the throat. I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. That was the night I left. I packed a bag while he was asleep. I didn't have anywhere to go. I just knew I couldn't stay. He ended up at this shelter because a friend texted him the address. He struggles to sleep with so many people around. He struggles to stay sober in a space where many are not. He struggles with shame. I used to think of myself as the strong one, he says. Now I'm the one in the line outside the shelter, waiting for a bed. A lot of the queer folks here have that same feeling. You survived coming out, you survived your family, you survived school, and then something else knocks you down, and you're back at zero. Alex, Rosa, Malik, 3 stories in one city, or 3 different cities, 3 different paths that lead to the same intersection. Queer, homeless, trying to stay alive in a world where love and violence and needles intertwine. Love as shield, love as wound. At dusk, the city's queer neighborhood wakes up again. Bars open, patio lights flick on, couples walk hand in hand down the street, looking in shop windows and reading menus. It looks like a picture of freedom. But if you step closer, you see another layer. Alex sits on the curb near a coffee shop, sharing a bag of chips with someone who leans their head on Alex's shoulder. Their name is Jay. They are 19, pansexual, and have been on and off the streets for 2 years. We met in a shelter line, Alex says. They were shivering. I had an extra hoodie. I gave it to them. That's pretty much how queer love stories start out here. You cold. I got you. They have been together for almost 10 months, which in street time feels like years. We look out for each other, Jay says. We try not to use alone. We split food. If one of us is doing bad, the other tries to talk them down. We sleep with our bags touching so nobody steals them. Their relationship is tender, funny, full of inside jokes. It is also constantly under stress. Sometimes we argue about drugs, Alex says. If one of us wants to use more than the other, or about dates. If someone has to do a date to pay for a room, the other gets scared. You worry they won't come back. You worry they'll meet someone who offers them more than you can. Love can feel like a shield on the street. When you walk with someone, you are less of a target. When you sleep next to someone, you are a bit less vulnerable. When you use drugs with someone you trust, you feel safer than using with strangers. But love can also be a wound. Rosa knows this too well. She once had a boyfriend who was also on the street. He gave her hormones when she could not afford them. He held her when she cried. He also introduced her to injection drugs and convinced her to see more and more clients, to support both their habits. He said we were a team, she says. He said everything we did was for us, but really, it was for the drugs. I put myself in situations I never wanted because I thought that was the price of love. When she tried to leave, he threatened to out her past, to tell clients where she slept, to hurt her friends if she cut him off. I knew it was abuse, she says. But when you've been rejected by your family and by the world, you cling to the people who say they love you, even when they hurt you. You don't want to be alone again. Intimate partner violence among LGBTQ plus people is common, higher than many would expect. Queer and trans people, especially those who are homeless, report high rates of physical and sexual violence from partners, ex-partners, and casual relationships. Minority stress, trauma, and lack of safe housing make it even harder to leave dangerous relationships. Malik reflects on this from his bunk in the shelter. I didn't think of what was happening to me as domestic violence for a long time, he says, because we were two men, because sometimes he cried after and said he was sorry, because sometimes I shouted too. But the truth is, he controlled me. He isolated me. He scared me. Getting away meant losing the apartment, the couch, the place where I kept my clothes. It meant choosing the street over a bed. That's not an easy choice. For many queer people, love is both sanctuary and risk, a place where they are seen and a place where they are hurt. On the street, these dynamics get sharper. Couples share needles because they want to feel close. Partners go on dates they don't want to go on because they need money for both. Fights escalate because stress is high, sleep is rare, and trauma is everywhere. Yet even with all the danger, queer love remains a powerful force. Without Jay, Alex says, I don't know if I'd still be here. When I'm too far gone, they bring me back. When they're too far gone, I do the same. We have this rule, no matter how bad it gets, we try not to give up on each other. Love is a double-edged thing on these sidewalks. It can cut, it can heal, it can carry people through nights they might not survive alone. needles, pain, and harm reduction. In a small park, under a bridge, a group of people sit in a loose circle. Their clothes are worn. Their backpacks are heavy. Some are queer, some are not. They pass around a small bottle of water, a bag of chips, and quietly, a bundle of supplies someone brought from a harm reduction program. Inside the bundle are clean syringes, alcohol pads, bandages, and a nasal spray that can reverse an opioid overdose. This is the reality people don't see when they talk about queer issues, Jay says. Yeah, we care about pride. We care about marriage. We care about pronouns. But we also care about not dying in an alley. Alex nods. When you're homeless and queer, you're already dealing with a lot, they say. Family rejection, shelter staff who don't respect your identity, people yelling slurs from cars. That stress sits in your body. For some of us, drugs came in as a way to make it all quiet for a minute. Studies have shown that LGBTQ people, especially youth, are more likely to use substances than their straight peers. For queer youth experiencing homelessness, that risk is even higher. They are more likely to use hard drugs, more likely to inject, more likely to think about suicide. Not because there is something wrong with them, but because they live with layers of stress, discrimination, violence, rejection, and the grind of survival. Rosa sits apart from the group, rolling a bandage around her arm where an injection site has become infected. This is what nobody tells you when you start, she says. They tell you it'll make you feel good. They don't talk about the abscesses, the scars, the nights you can't find a vein, the times someone overdoses next to you and you're screaming their name and nothing is happening. She remembers when a friend, another trans woman who worked the same avenue, collapsed in a doorway after using what she thought was her usual amount. She was fine 1 second, Rosa says, talking about some stupid TV show. Then she got quiet. Her lips turned gray. We had Narcan, thank God. Someone had taught us how to use it. We sprayed it, we yelled her name, we rubbed her chest. She came back. If we hadn't had that, she would be another candle at a vigil, another gone too soon post on a feed full of trans angels. Harm reduction saves lives. Outreach workers walk block to block, handing out overdose reversal kits, clean syringes, and information. They train people, including queer teens and trans adults, to spot overdoses and respond. They do not ask anyone to be clean before they help. They meet them where they are. This approach gets criticized by some who say it encourages drug use. But the people sitting under the bridge know the truth. The drugs are already here. The question is whether people live long enough to have a chance at recovery, housing, and a different life. Clean needles don't make me want to use, Malik says. Withdrawal makes me want to use. Trauma makes me want to use. Clean needles just mean I won't get an infection on top of everything else. For queer and trans people, harm reduction also looks like this. A drop-in center that uses your correct name and pronouns. A shelter that lets trans people sleep in the section that matches their gender. A clinic that knows how to manage both hormone therapy and addiction treatment without forcing you to choose one or the other. When they tell me I have to stop my hormones to get into a program, I walk out, Rosa says. My gender is not a hobby, it's who I am. If you make me choose between that and recovery, I'm going to choose me, even if it kills me. Programs that understand this, that treat gender affirmation as part of health, not separate from it, are rare but growing. They train staff to avoid misgendering. They recognize that safety for queer and trans clients includes protection from harassment and assault inside shelters and treatment centers, not just from the elements outside. Alex talks about one such place. There's a youth center that has queer support groups and a harm reduction team, they say. They have rainbow flags on the walls, but not just for decoration. Staff are queer themselves. They know our slang. They know our struggles. When I go there, I feel like I don't have to hide any piece of myself. I can talk about being non-binary, about using, about survival sex, all in one conversation. And nobody looks at me like I'm a problem they didn't expect. Needles are part of this story, but they are not the whole story. The real story is about pain and coping, about systems that fail queer people and then punish them for how they survive, about programs that are trying, imperfectly, to do better. Night, chosen family and a choice for US. Night falls again. The rainbow flags flutter in the evening breeze. The bar windows glow. People line up for drag shows, holding tickets and phones, ready to record. Just a few blocks away, in a cramped tent tucked between the buildings, a small group of queer and trans people gather. Alex, Jay, Rosa, Malik, and a few others who drift in and out. They share food from a donation bag. They pass around a phone, watching a silly video. Someone braids someone else's hair. Someone else carefully arranges blister packs of medication in a plastic container, counting out doses for the week. This is chosen family. No legal paperwork, no shared last names, no formal dinners. Just a group of people who have decided, in a world that often throws them away, to hold on to each other. We look out for each other, Malik says. If someone doesn't show up where they said they'd be, we ask around. If someone is having a bad trip, we sit with them. If someone is trying to go to an intake appointment, we walk them there so they don't turn around. Rosa smiles gently. On the street, other trans girls were my first mothers, she says. They taught me how to do my makeup, how to walk in heels, how to stay alive when men got angry. They also taught me how to use the Narcan they tucked in my purse. Love looks different out here, but it's still love. Alex leans into Jay. I don't know what's going to happen to us, they say. I don't know if we'll get housing, or get clean, or move to some quiet little town where we can have a garden and a cat. But I know that right now, we're still here. We're still breathing. We're still holding each other's hands when it hurts. That has to count for something. Outside the tent, the city moves on. People take selfies under rainbow lights. Politicians give speeches about values. New laws are written that either protect or punish queer and trans people, depending on where you live. Somewhere, a new trans-only shelter opens its doors in a big city, giving people like Rosa a place where they don't have to choose between misgendering and sleeping outside. Somewhere else, an LGBTQ youth house welcomes its first residents, offering them beds, counseling, and a chance to finish school. These are rays of hope in a dark landscape, but they are not enough on their own. If you are listening to this, you have a choice too. You can decide that queer issues are only about marriage, pronouns, and bathroom bills, and ignore the tents under the overpasses and the needles in the alley. Or you can expand your view. You can understand that being queer and homeless is not about bad personal choices, but about family rejection, discrimination, underfunded services, and a drug supply that kills quickly and quietly. You can talk about queer and trans people on the street with the same respect you would use for anyone else, not as punchlines, not as warnings, as human beings. You can support organizations that provide gender-affirming, harm reduction-based services, drop-in centers, queer youth shelters, trans-inclusive treatment programs, outreach teams who talk to people where they actually are. You can push your city, your leaders, your communities too. Fund housing first programs that do not exclude people because they use drugs or are queer or trans. Protect queer and trans people from discrimination in shelters and services. Expand harm reduction services, including overdose reversal medications and non-judgmental health care. Listen to queer and trans people with lived experience when designing solutions. Most of all, you can keep your heart open when you pass someone on the street who looks like Alex, or Rosa, or Malik, or Jay. Remember that before the needle, there was pain. Before the tent, there was a front door that closed on them. Before the violence, there was a child who wanted what every child wants, to be loved as they are. Homeless Lens exists so their stories are not swallowed by the dark. If this episode touched you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Homeless Lens so you can keep walking with us through the places most people avoid. Share this video with someone who thinks pride is only a party, not also a shelter for those who have nowhere else to go. Leave a comment if you are queer, trans, or an ally with experience of homelessness, addiction, or harm reduction. Your voice can help others see past stereotypes. Queer and homeless people are not statistics. They are not cautionary tales. They are part of our community. Love does not end at the shelter door. Dignity does not disappear under a freeway. No human being is disposable. This was Queer and Homeless, Love, Violence, and Needles. A Homeless Lens story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing. And thank you for caring.